Hey y'all, Coach Fight here. Got Stacy with me.
Shalom.
Um, as some of you know, that Stacy has been working on classes associated with the conscious. Right, Stacy?
Yes, I have.
Becoming like a neighborhood expert on the conscious.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, well, you actually been getting a pretty good understanding of it. I've learned a lot dealing with the conscious, just listening to you. But there was one thing I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk on, and that is the new covenant. What do you know about the new covenant?
The new covenant?
Yeah.
I don't really know anything. I know a covenant is an agreement, but as far as the new covenant, are you talking about the Third Testament?
Well, up here in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 24, it says, "And to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel." You've heard this in the church. When you used to go back to church, they told you that the old covenant was going away, or gone away is what they actually taught you, and that we had a new covenant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know anything about it?
I do not.
All right. Well, let's look here in the scripture. As you know, the one way to define words according to the scriptures go back to the very first time that you hear about them. Right? So if we come back to Jeremiah 31 and 31, it says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand and to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, saith the Lord. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people."
I've heard that verse a lot of times, but I don't really understand it.
You don't understand it? All right. Well, you may understand it a little bit more if you think about what's actually going on here. Now, let's see. I think there's another place we want to look right quick. Let's see. All right. Now, look in here in 31. When it says, now, if you understand this part right here where it says the days to come is talking about the last days, or the post-tribulation period. After the tribulation, he's telling us that he's going to make a new covenant with man. Whereas the old one was broken, and he says, "And I will put my law in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people."
Yeah, I never really understood what he was talking about when it was say, "write it in their heart."
Okay?
That has to be something spiritual.
It has to be something spiritual. All right? So entertain this for a thought then. What if he's talking about the conscious?
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah, because the day of the Lord is the day of the conscious. That's the day that the conscious becomes dominant in our life. Whereas now, like you talk about in your classes, how we can beat it down, how materialism, what does materialism do?
It like calcifies.
It makes it to where you can't hear it and such. Well, after the day of the Lord, that time is over. We're actually going to be able to hear our conscious.
Hear our inner voice, which we know is the voice of the Father actually speaking to us, where we can hear it.
Yeah. And then what do you got in there on the board? And that you was trying to explain to us the other day how we started off with the conscious, and then...
Yeah, I was saying that, and let me take a quick look at it, how we started off with the conscious, and then the Father gave us the law. And what happens is our conscious, when we're in a situation, our conscious is trying to speak to our spirit and tell us to do the right thing. But if we can't hear our conscience, which, materialism comes along and covers it up, and we can't hear our conscience, or we make the choice to not listen to it, then if we find ourselves stuck, we have the law. We can go to the law, pick up the law, and the law will tell us the right thing to do.
So it's like when we were first allowed to come down here on earth, Adam was the first man here, and a bunch of us have come down here since. We were first given the conscience to be our God. But then over time, as we traveled in and out of Egypt and in and out of Babylon, we picked up on their Egyptian ways and their Babylonian ways, which involves a lot of materialism and idolatry and other sins. Is like you say, it has calcified our conscience to where we can't hear it anymore.
Yeah, we can't listen. We can't you can't hear that voice. You can't hear the Father speaking to you.
So then, after they came out of Egypt, Moses gave them the law written down on paper.
Yeah, we gotta have something written down
because the conscience is ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
So we've deteriorated or downgraded from our conscience into the law.
Yeah.
Where we, like we were talking about in another class, those who don't know the difference between right and wrong today, we have the police to help people to understand the difference between right and wrong. And that's where the Mosaic law came in too, where it was helping us to understand the difference between right and wrong, whereas before it was the conscience that was doing that.
Yeah.
So now think about all of that when you think about how he says here that in the days to come, or the post-tribulation, or the millennial age, or the kingdom of heaven age, he's going to give us a new covenant. And in that covenant, what he says, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So what is that saying?
Well, when I think of the Father talking about heart, I automatically go to him talking about our spirit, talking about our inner being. And when he says that I'm going to write it inside of your inner thoughts, your inner will, that makes complete sense to me.
All right. Well, let me tell you what the answer is. The answer is the conscience. The answer is that the new covenant that we are expecting is our conscience taking over again. Real simple. Your laws written on your inward parts means that your conscience is now dominant in your life. You don't have to have the law anymore. That's what we're looking for.
So when we say, or you hear people say that the law is done away with, it's not so done away with now, but at one time those things that are written down are going to be placed inside of us. And
well, they're already inside of us. They're already in your conscience.
Yeah.
The problem is that your conscience is ill-effective in this time.
So does that mean that materialism is going to be done away with?
Yeah. That's what the tribulation is going to do when he shake down all of the idols and all of the buildings and take away all of your gold and all of your silver. It's basically going to reduce, it's going to humble the world to where materialism is no longer our main objective as it is today. And when this happens, when your materialistic stuff goes away, that is the difference between having a conscience that can help you or not, is the materialism. So once the materialism goes away, then you become a being of your conscience. Your conscience becomes effective again, and now you will and there you will have the laws of the Father written. And so you don't need the old covenant anymore.
Right.
Because you never needed the old covenant until your conscience became
Right.
weak. But once your conscience becomes strong again, you won't need that paper law anymore. You won't need to have rules anymore. You will know the difference between right and wrong inside your heart.
Yeah, well, I remember, I was asking this question this morning in Third Testament. I think it's chapter 34, verse 21. It says, why does sin exist? It says, because man does not listen to the voice of his conscience. So when sin is done away with, your conscience, you will be able to listen to your conscience. You will be able to hear it.
Yep, but that's after the day of the Lord, and we can talk about the day of the Lord in another class. But what it boils down to is the day of the conscious, the day that our conscious, there's a switch. All of humanity will be changed in a moment, and what we're going to change from is from materialistic beings to spiritualistic beings, meaning that our conscious is going to become dominant in our life, and that's where our laws are they're already written there. The thing is, we're actually going to be able to hear it, and we're going to be able to take advantage of it, and we're going to know the difference between right and wrong. Not based on a Mosaic law. Go ahead.
But that is not until after the tribulation, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Is that the Reverend Pastor Deacon Dr. Doug is telling us that this has already been in effect now. He's telling us that we can throw away the law now and not pay attention to the rules of the Old Testament because we have the laws written on our heart. Which is partially true. The devil already stows enough truth in there to make it make sense to you. The laws are already written on our heart. The problem is we can't hear them.
Right. That's what I was about to say. They're there. You just can't hear them.
You can't hear them. You can't take advantage of them. You get ready to do something. Your conscience, although it may be in there screaming as loud as it can, it's like you have headphones over materialistic headphones on your head to where, it makes no difference.
So the laws, the one written down, the one Moses gave us, and the one that the Messiah gave us, you have to have them now. You have to be able to follow them now. But the teachers and the pastors are telling us that we don't have to have them. You don't have to have the laws, the ones that's written down, and you don't have your conscience to help you. So therefore, people are just doing whatever.
Yeah, and I think what does the Third Testament say? There's something like leaves blowing aimlessly by the wind.
Dry leaves.
Dry leaves. Let's see if I can find that. We're in chapter 34, which is what you did your class on, chapter 34, verse 31. I don't think you got that far. Right. We still have a few more parts to do in there to finish it up. But starting up here in verse 31, it says, my word is the road. It is the divine law that guides you to perfection, the light that elevates the spirit, but which has been dulled when the flesh, by its rigidity, has imposed itself, not hearing the interior voice of the conscience. Woe then to the spirit that has ceded to the impulses of the material and has left itself to be dominated by the influences of the world that surrounds it, exchanging its posts as guide for that of a defenseless being carried from one side to the other by human passions and weaknesses, like dry leaves carried aimlessly by the wind.
Yeah, you can't do nothing with dry leaves.
But that's exactly where we're all right now, because like you say, we're being taught not to pay attention to the Mosaic laws, yet we don't have the conscience as a guide during this time period. So we are like dry leaves being carried aimlessly by the wind.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then, just as a little bit of a side note, verse 33 says, the man who most loves his freedom fears to submit himself to the divine will because he is fearful that the spirit will tame him, depriving him of many human satisfactions that he knows will harm him and cause him to abandon the road that leads to true life. So the reason why we're being taught this is so that we can enjoy this stuff.
Yeah.
That as we know is harmful to us, we can discount the Mosaic laws and say they are antiquated and for those people of old, and we can continue to use materialism to silence our conscience so that we are not tamed, our spirit is not tamed, and so that we can keep taking advantage or still enjoying this stuff, this worldly stuff that we know is harming us.
Yeah, the on in 25 of 34 it says that we're deaf to the call or to the voice of the conscience because we got all of our attention on materialism and self adoration.
Yeah. And okay, but the thing is, um, the day of the Lord, the day of the conscious,
Yeah.
The day when we have that change in a twinkling of an eye. What they say, every voice shall hear him. That's talking about everybody on the planet. At some point, um, we're all going to be switched, and we're going to be able to hear our conscience.
Yeah, I think and this is just a side note, I was listening to Third Testament, and I believe I heard him say that our vision of what hell is not what he's saying hell is. Our vision, what hell is actually is just being able to hear your conscience, hearing the bad things that you've done.
Well, yeah, we believe that you go to hell after you die. After you die, you go to hell, right? Or
Yeah.
heaven,
Mm-hmm.
Right? But what that actually means is you enter the spirit world where you have to spend some time there as kind of a respite period where before you are reincarnated into a new child here on earth. But during that period that you are in the spirit world, the only company that you have is your conscience that's constantly reminding you of the stuff that you've done here on the earth, reminding you that you are not worthy to go on to higher dwelling places, and ends up causing you to beg to be allowed to come back here to the earth where you can try to rectify some of that stuff.
Yeah, so conscience is very important.
Yep, and that's the new covenant. The conscience is the new covenant.
Conscience is the new covenant. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I never thought about it, but yeah, I agree.
Conscience is the new covenant.
But you're being told now that, yeah, it's written in your heart.
Lying to us. They're tricking us. That's one of the things they're using to trick us, is that whole new covenant thing by telling us that the laws are written on it. Sure, they're written on the heart. That's actually true. They are. They are written on everybody on the planet has the conscience written on their heart, including Hitler, including Donald Trump, including Jeffrey Dahmer, including everybody. Everybody's got the laws written on their heart. So what? What good is it doing us?
All right.
We're doing whatever we want to do because we've calcified the conscience. So even though they are there, it's just like a closed book. Yeah, just like the laws are, almost everybody in America has the laws written in a book in their house, but if they never open it, what good is it doing? Well, that's the same as the conscience now. The laws are written there, but you can't get to them. It's like a locked book almost, because as some of us know who are trying to hear the conscience, it's difficult. It takes preparation. It takes meditation. It takes a lot of effort in order to hear the conscience in today's time, today.
Yeah.
But that's changing in the new covenant.
When all this stuff is gone,
you ain't gonna have no choice. He say he's going to put it on humanity, some by force. Some of us, it's going to be forcefully installed. We don't want nothing to do with the conscience, but we are not going to be able to do anything about it. Every eye shall see him. Every eye. Everybody's going to hear the conscience. And that's why it says some people are going to awaken to joy, and others are going to awaken to corruption. Some of us are going to be happy about this.
Yeah.
Some of us are going to hate it.
They don't want to hear it.
They don't want to hear it. They're afraid that it's going to take away from the pleasure that they're enjoying in life.
Tame their spirit.
They're not going to be able to enjoy whatever it is that they're thinking that is sinful in their life. They're afraid that the conscience is going to get rid of that.
My mind always go back to your mom saying that she ain't ready, or even people say that I ain't ready yet.
Yeah.
You hear people say I ain't ready yet.
Because they want the materialistic stuff, and they're afraid that, that it's going to be taken away from them. And so what the scripture said is that people usually wait to their deathbed in order to then try to get it right. All of a sudden, on their deathbed, when they realize that they're going to die, now all of a sudden they start to consider um, the Father and what His will is, and they start trying to do it right.
But they ain't got no merits here, no rewards, no nothing to
no
put
nothing.
in.
They have no oil in the lantern, and so
Right.
they're going to go spend a little time in the spirit world. Like you said, it's going to feel like hell because the conscience is like a fire. That feeling that you're going to feel from the conscience is equated to fire, and you're going to feel that for a period of time. Some people for 1,000 years. That's why they call it the lake of fire, because they're going to be there for 1,000 years in this respite period, being bombarded and bashed by their conscience. And those people will, after the millennial age is over, they'll be able to, they will be allowed to return through reincarnation along with Satan in order to have the last battles here on earth. And it's through the pain that they will receive during those last battles.
What do you mean by the last battles? Is that spiritual or?
No, it's actually a physical battle, and that happens in the end. And we can actually do a Bible study on it. It seems like Armageddon happens 1,000 years from now, but it's a final war where the people come, and if you remember in scripture, they get the all of the saints surrounded, and then fire comes down and destroys them all. And yeah, that is during that period. Again, Satan, he will have been loosed by then. He would have his little humans acting as his materialistic arms that will be out here doing this devilish stuff. And what it will be doing is just setting those people up so that the pain that they are received in will actually purify them, so that when we go on to the next mansion, to the higher mansions, even they will be purified.
Like everything the church is telling us or teaching us is all wrong.
Yeah, that's why you don't hear books like Peter. They don't talk about books like Jude. They don't talk about what's that book that comes before Philemon in the Bible. They never talk about even those books. They say that they want nothing to do with the extra canonical books, but they're having to refuse even the gospel, where the Messiah said, I come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law. In one place, in another place, he says those that teach the law will be considered great in the kingdom of heaven, and those who reject the law will be considered least in the kingdom of heaven. They're having to reject even those verses. They even go to like the 23rd Psalm and all of the other Psalms, but they reject the first one. They reject Psalms 1, which talks about the law, obedience to the law. It's like, how do you say you love Psalms? Well, read Psalm 1. It talks about the law. But the church, the church doesn't want to have anything to do with this, and that's why the Father says, come out of her, or you're going to get the same pain that they get. Because, it says, not only is the Reverend Pastor Deacon Dr. Doug going to be punished for what he's saying, but everybody that's listening to him are going to be punished as well. He's not going to get away, but surprisingly, the little so-called innocent person that stumbled in on that mess and doesn't have the biblical background to understand that they're in the wrong place, they're going to suffer with him too.
I wonder, is that the reason that Satan shuts down ministers like you, so that you can't get that word out to, or even a pastor shuts you down because they don't want.
The word you was looking for was Elohim. You said, is that the reason why Elohim shuts these people down? It is. Those angelic figures, those principalities and powers shuts them down. What does he say? He hardens their heart. He closes their ears and he closes their eyes so that they can't hear with their eyes, and so that they can't understand, they can't hear with their ears or see with their eyes and be converted. He doesn't want them to be converted. We have to we have to gain the necessary merits. Just think of what it would be like if everywhere I went and spread the gospel, everybody got it. All of a sudden, you would have, these people out here running around doing good deeds and doing this and doing
What's wrong with that?
Well, the problem is they can't make it up. You got too much to make up. It's like, okay, you have this huge debt. You owe $1 million, and you don't know about it. And I come and I tell you, okay, you owe this $1 million. Yeah, I know you owe it, but I ain't got to worry about that. And if somehow I can convince you that, the bill collector is coming, June 23rd, 2000 so-and-so, he's going to come, and this is what he's going to do. He's going to take your house, he's going to take your kids, he's going to take this, he's going to take that. If I can convince you of that, you'd be like, oh, well, let me start paying now. I'm going to pay $2 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're never going to do it. And so now, at the end, when that date comes and the bill collector gets ready to come, you're going to be sitting there with this confused look on your face like, hey, I've been trying to make up for this $1 million debt, ever since I found out about it. I've been paying $2 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I should be able to go to heaven. The scripture is real. The scripture is right. I should be able to get in. I've been working towards it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, man, all you came up was $27, out of 2 million. You still have to go through the tribulation. And so you sitting there arguing with the Father and everybody else saying, I've been making retribution. I've been making retribution. I've been making up for it, which technically you actually have. But you just got too far away to go. So he hardens their heart. He closes their ears, talking about the Elohim, which is a plural word for everything spiritual, including principalities and powers. They close the ears of these people so that the day of judgment can come and they can get the necessary rewards. They can get the necessary pain that they're going to have without any confusion. When that stuff comes out of the sky, ain't none of them going to be able to stand up and say, I tried. No, you didn't. You didn't try. You actually made it worse.
Didn't I prophesy in your name? Didn't I?
Yeah. Did I do this and did I do that? Well,
said the part I never knew you.
And so their hearts are being hardened. They're doing it. The principalities are doing it. Elohim is doing it.
But what can change, because it changed for our family? What makes that person a candidate to say, for the Father to say, okay, I'm going to choose your like our family, I'm going to choose your family to get out of this?
Obedience. You say it changed for our family, and we don't want to take credit for anything, but you have to remember that there was a day before we understood what the covenant was and what the law was. There was a day we was introduced to the covenant and its laws, and then there was a day we made a conscious decision to try to follow every rule in the book. And that was years and years ago, and we have been making a decision to do it since.
So you're saying everybody's given a choice?
Everybody's given a chance. Everybody has a calling, but some of us rejected that call. And when the covenant and the laws were put in our face, we ridiculed and we laughed and we said we don't have nothing to do with that. My pastor told me I don't have to follow those rules. I don't have to follow those laws. I don't know what you're talking about. And so they threw the book down and they kept on in their materialism. And they're going to keep on in their materialism until the materialism is taken from them through hurricanes or fires or wars or whatever. And it is then when they find themselves in a quiet place that they're going to get introduced to the conscious in a big way. Like I said, everybody on the planet is going to go through it at the same time. So you can imagine it's going to be a really big deal. It's going to be a really big deal. And see, when you talk about us right here, this is exactly what happened to us right here, up here in chapter, I think it's 55, verse 5, when it says, "Blessed are the men, women, and children who, upon realizing the proximity of that justice, glory my name, sensing that the day of the Lord has arrived, because their hearts will tell them that the end of the reign of evil draws near. I say to you that these people, through their faith, their hope and their good deeds will be saved. But how many of those who live during those days are going to blaspheme? So you have some people that are blaspheming, but praise the Father in heaven, we were amongst the group that said, oh, wait, something's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
These trumpets are blowing. There's something going on there. This is, all of this stuff that's going on in the world is not really natural. It's not really normal. There's something going on. Maybe we're in the day of the Lord. And then we started to try to get back on track.
Yeah, like when you were talking about how you were saying, what makes me different than all the other people here in this job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I start sensing the mark of the beast coming and start wondering, okay, how am I not going to have the mark of the beast? That's what it's talking about. We were sensing the day of the Lord. Okay, now this is what I was looking for over here, and I think it's still chapter 55, verse 39. He says, but the hour of the conscience approaches. The hour of the conscience approaches. It is the same as if you would say that the day of the Lord or his judgment is about to take place. Then shame will arise in some and remorse in others.
So that's saying that the conscience and the day of the Lord are the same.
The conscience and the day of the Lord is the same.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't just making stuff up. Mm-hmm. I might not be able to pull the verses out all the time, but when you read it, he as part of what the Holy Spirit, the Ruach Kadesh, I believe it's called. That's part of what it does. Is it brings the verses back to your memory when you need them. But the day of the Lord and the day of the conscience are the same. The hour of the conscience and the day of the Lord is the same.
Mm.
That's the day when your conscience is going to take over.
Break loose.
Break loose, out of control. Mm-hmm. This thing is going to be on you, dinging you for everything. Things that you've done all of your life. I know what it feels like. Yeah, everybody does. You have bouts of it every once in a while where some guiltful thing comes to your mind and you sit there and almost cry about something you've done 5 years ago or 2 years ago. The person ain't even around to apologize to them for it or make up for it, but yet your conscience is sitting there hammering on you, clamoring.
I remember probably a couple of days before Atonement Day, couple of weeks ago, when I thought about something that it just appeared in my head. I had said to my dad that I shouldn't have said, and oh my goodness, I sat there and I walked and I just cried and I cried and I cried and it just would not leave me. And so I would imagine that's what it feels like triple times.
Yeah, and the thing is now I know it's a bit of a subject change, but that's part of the what is it called, restitution. When you're actually feeling that, you can actually be forgiven of that during that moment. That's part of the reason it's happening, is giving you the opportunity to repent.
Yeah, I did.
That's one of the ways we can squash some of the bad deeds that we've done, is actually remember it and repent of it. And so our conscience is working. But the hour of the conscience is coming where it's not just going to be fleeting moments.
Right.
It's going to be a part of your life. And some people are going to feel like they're in hell because of it, because it's not going to go away and ain't nothing you're going to be able to do about it.
Yeah, I remember thinking, I'm like, I think Cliff got the Day of Atonement wrong, because it seemed like I'm repenting for sins that and Atonement Day ain't even made it here yet.
Yeah, because
but
yeah.
And I was like, dang, why can't I just shake this? But I remember it just all of a sudden appeared in my head, and I remember even saying, Dad, will you please forgive me? I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have said that. And I don't remember how, but eventually, I got back in order or whatever. But yeah, if that's what it feels like.
That's it.
I mean, I think I was walking around here like a zombie. I remember you asking me, what's wrong? What's going on? I was like, nothing. But that's what I was feeling, yeah. So, wow.
Conscious. Yep. The new covenant.